In order to grade a set of student submissions with EESyGrader, you first have to prepare a rubric, which we talked about in the last video, and then students should have completed the assignment, hopefully by starting with the starter code that you had prepared for them, which we also discussed in the last video. Students then should submit their EES files, and you will then place all of those EES files in a folder for grading. So this video is going to discuss the grading process without assuming anything about the learning management system that you might be using. The subsequent video is going to provide some additional information and some additional features that are useful if you're using the Canvas learning management system for your class. So if you want to start EESyGrader, you can open it either by selecting the application from the startup menu or by clicking on the EESyGrader.exe application that has been installed in UserLib EESyGrader folder in your EES folder. Initially, you're going to see a message like this one, which indicates the version of EESyGrader that you have installed and the associated version of EES that you must be using. The latest version of EESyGrader that you can download is also indicated in this message. Once you dismiss the message, you'll get to this main EESyGrader dialog. And one thing you might want to do is specify the EES program. So what EESyGrader eventually does is open and run every submission using your EES program. And there's a few people that might have multiple versions of EES installed on your computer. And if that's the case, then you're probably going to need to specify the location of the academic version that you want to use with EESyGrader. Most users won't need to do this. They'll only have that version of EES installed. But if you do, you just hit this button here, EES program, and you can go navigate to the EES program that you want to use. EESyGrader requires a rubric to use when it's grading the submissions. So you can enter the rubric manually if you'd like, but that's pretty tedious and really not recommended. Instead, sort of the intention is that you will load the rubric that you saved from EES as we discussed in the previous video. And you do this by selecting the Load Rubric button and then navigate to the .rbc file that you've already saved. You select Open, and that will import the rubric, and the file that is being used will populate this edit box that's adjacent to the Load Rubric button. If you want to view the rubric or edit it, just select the Edit Rubric button here, and that'll bring up the Rubric dialog. So this Rubric dialog is the one that you get by loading the rubric that we developed in the previous video for that sample assignment. At this point, you can modify the rubric any way that you'd like. You can change the point values, you can change the margins, so the plus or minus, the band of acceptable answers. And when you're finished, you can save this modified rubric if you'd like with the Save Rubric button. Or you can return to the EESyGrader main dialog with the Done button. If you'd like, you can also load a different rubric with the Load Rubric button. So here I'll just hit Done. Finally, then you have to select the submission directory. So you select the submission directory button here and navigate to the directory or the folder where you've placed all of your EES files that need to be graded, and hit OK. This last button here is the Save Settings button, and that will just save the selections that you've just made in terms of the submissions directory. If you have a grade book with Canvas, it will save the location of that as well. The rubric file directory and the EES file, the EES file that you're going to use. And all that means is that next time you open EESyGrader, it will just default to these directory locations so that you don't have to reselect them. So once you've loaded the rubric and you've selected the submission directory, you should be able to grade the submissions. So to do that, you select the Grade Submissions button, and you'll initially see a message indicating that EESyGrader is opening EES. And then after a few seconds, you should see a message indicating that EESyGrader is grading, and also a progress bar that shows sort of how far it's gotten. And depending on how many submissions you are grading and how long it takes to solve each submission, the grading process can take a few minutes. On a typical Windows computer like this one with relatively simple homework problems, I can grade more than 200 submissions in less than a minute. Once the grading is complete, you will see the message that's shown here, which just tells you that grading is complete. You hit OK to dismiss this message and return to the EESyGrader main dialog, and you can see that this now includes information about the results of the grading process. So Over here in the box to the left, you can see things like how many submissions were graded. So in this case, up here, more than 200. You can see according to each question, so each question is each output, you can see what the average scores were and how many people got it right. And then you have these lists over here to the right, which are kind of useful. If you go from top to bottom here, the top list indicates how many people had a submission that solved but didn't get any points at all. So the only points they got were the completion points, if you have those. And then you have a list below that that has submissions where some of the outputs just weren't set. So some answers were missing. So you can see that number here. And then below that you have students who lost points due to unit warnings. And then below that you just have a complete list of all the students who lost points for any reason whatsoever. And in any of these lists, if you just select an entry that you're curious about and you double click on it, it'll use ease to open that file, and you can look at the file in order to investigate sort of what's going on with that particular file. So the last step then is you want to build a grade report, and that's what you do in the bottom pane here. There are two formats available. You can you pick this general.csv file radio button, and total grades only means that you're going to create a CSV file that has only two columns. So as shown here, the first column in the file is the name of the submission, and the second column is the total grade for each submission. Right, so this is probably what you would do when you're ready just to upload the grades somehow or enter the grades in your grade book. The other radio button where it says category grades included creates a CSV file again, but this time there's a column for each of the categories that together make up the total grade. So you can see here, you have a category for each of those 6 output variables. And then you have a category for completion points and a category for unit checkpoints. And if you add all these columns together, you get finally this last category, this last column for total points. So this is interesting and useful if you want to sort of diagnose where people are losing their points. And then the last thing, which isn't necessary at all, but if you want to do this, you can, and that is to build text files out of each submission. So if you're interested or worried about plagiarism in a class like this where all submissions are automatically graded, you would just hit this Make Text File button. And what that's going to do then is it's going to strip the contents of the equations window from each of the EES files that were submitted and turn that into an associated .txt file that contains only this information. So you have to pick the directory where you'd like to put these files. And then what EASyGrader is going to do is activate EASE and open each of the submissions as an EASE file and then save it as a .txt file in that directory. And so when you're done, if you go and open up any of these .txt files, you'll see it just contains what was in the equations window. And the reason for this is that you can easily compare these .txt files if you want to try to detect plagiarism. There's a variety of commercial programs that do this. The one that works really well I found is called Fast Duplicate File Finder, and it'll scan this entire directory in a few seconds and then group submissions based on their similarity to one another and how similar they are in terms of percentage. So if you find 2 or 3 that are 100% similar, that might be worth investigating. Anything more than like 95% similar is probably something you want to go look at. And that's the grading process with EASyGrader. The next video we'll talk about some additional bells and whistles that are available if you're using EASyGrader with Canvas. And so it's kind of been designed to integrate with Canvas. And we can add features to integrate it with other learning management systems according to user interest.